The future of work is changing, and it will be changing rapidly over the next 5+ years. On today's podcast, we're going to speak with Anna Vitale, Chief Client Officer at Growthink. We're going to make a few predictions about the future of work over the next 5-10 years. And we're also going to give some recommendations for you, the business owner, the leader, the manager, on how to navigate these waters. Anna, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tim. Great to see you.
Of course, always love having you on the show. Today, we're talking about the future of work and how it's going to evolve. And we're also going to make some predictions along the way, just for a bit of fun with our viewing audience. I thought we would start today on the topic of remote work. So as a preface, we're seeing a lot of people staying home still, and there has been a call for people to come back into the offices. And I think the jury's still out as to whether the remote worker is more productive, or when they become more productive, and or how to set up the right infrastructure and framework for max productivity with your remote or hybrid workers. What's your take and what's your experience on this?
My take is that it's both. I'm recording this from my home office, so clearly I'm a fan of remote work and the flexibility it gives. And I do think there's a lot of workflows that, for the type of work that we do, and this isn't for everyone, and I'm in the world of knowledge work, that are you're more efficient, you're more effective being at home, not having the kind of random pop in, or just things that come up when people are together in an office. That being said, there are certain things that do not happen when you're remote. And one thing that comes to mind is strategic decision making. In my experience and the experience of our company and many of our clients, without getting people in a room together, without being able to hear not just the ideas, but the feeling or the motion, the relationship behind the ideas, it's just, and then the alchemy of just spitballing together and saying, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And having everyone's concentration wholly in the same physical environment. And so I think there was a dream maybe, a couple years ago that, none of us will ever have to come into the office again. And I think that this is an opportunity to architect really intentional hybrid arrangements. And, for example, I'm in my home office today, but Monday I'll be in Vegas with 3,000 other people at DealMax. And, some people might say, do we really need to do conferences anymore? But the fact is, 3,000 people feel like there's going to be enough value there to show up in person.
Yeah.
And, it's a reality.
So I think that kind of drifts into the next topic, which is this generational divide, this generational gap. I have this conversation a lot where our clients, we kind of grew up similar in we went to the office, we sat in traffic for an hour there, hour back, and we knew what it felt like to be in an office environment and kind of what the political landscape was, and just everything that comes along with being in a physical office for years, cubicles and desks and all that kind of stuff. And then you have a new workforce that's coming in, and they haven't had this experience for, let's say, the last 5 years or so. And now we're requesting them maybe back to the office, or wondering why they don't act in a certain way, and they have completely different expectations. So for business owners out there, how do you recommend them kind of bridging those expectations and bridging that gap between them in that old mindset of get back to the office and sit there for 8 hours versus the new mindset of I'm very productive, just leave me alone?
Yeah. Each business owner, each business is its own universe. And as the owner, the business has to work for you, is my perspective on that. I do think that younger employees have the most to lose. Like you said, when I was starting up, you went into the office. You sat, it could be a slow day, it could be a busy day, but you were there. And, for hyper productive people like you and probably me, there were days where that was like, this is insane. Like, I finished all my work for the day. What are we doing? What are we still doing here? But there were also those days for me where it was like 12 or 14-hour days learning how to use Excel.
Right.
And just, being in a space where I could ask somebody a question right there. What do I do? How do I do this? What do you think about that? And I think that we, the kind of the mid-career people might, I don't know that we have found a great remote solution to that problem of how do you actually embed and enmesh less experienced, newer people to the workforce in what it is to just create a project for yourself and execute against it, or what it is to learn a new skill, or what it is to sit in a face-to-face meeting and pick up on the cues of what's being said, of what you know is out there, but you're seeing that it's consciously not being said. So being able to pick up on kind of that EQ as well as skill-based, it's definitely a gap, and it's important, especially for, you know, if you're wanting to bring up kind of the next generation of people in your company to be thinking, how do I create those? If that's not our day-to-day, if we're primarily work or somewhat hybrid, how do I create those experiences knowing that this is going to be something that, you know, the younger employees need?
Right. So the lower tactical, more execution driven roles like data entry, where you might have had to go to an office and sit there for 10 hours and do data entry all day long. My favorite photo is like the old telephone operator sitting in the room, they're just, you know, pushing the buttons, and like all of this stuff is going away. We're seeing it going away every single day. So you don't need to come to the office to learn those skills anymore. You can learn them online. You could watch videos and go to AI. And you used to have to go to an office to learn those things. Now, with the skills and the talent required to work in, let's say, the knowledge work and the service-based businesses, it's just different. It feels different. You don't really need to come to the office to learn how to do things anymore. Or do
What
you?
are those things? The interpersonal dynamics, developing what we would call status intelligence of how do I say you're an employee who wants to ask for a raise. You need to know the type of person your boss is,
Right.
what she or he cares about, so that you understand positioning. So you need to understand what it's like to offer to do something for a colleague that maybe doesn't benefit you in that moment, but it's relationship building. And I think that those are the skills that you cannot, I mean, sure, I could ask one of the AIs to tell me how should I ask for a raise, right? And but there is an element of building that kind of building your own humanity in a workplace that you're
Right.
not online, which I
So,
think when we think about advantages in the future of work, especially in knowledge work,
yeah.
that humanity piece is our advantage.
Right,
That's
right. You know, so much when I think about just when I look back 20 something years and I think of all the good times. I think about walking to get lunch with friends,
yeah,
the like, let's just break out and grab a quick coffee, after work drinks, and meeting people that worked in offices next to you and becoming buddies with those people and having long-term relationships with these folks. All those experiences in a remote environment, they're just not at your fingertips. They're kind of missing, to your point, that humanity and that EQ. You're just really missing that component. And for some people that may not come back. For some people they're going to have to scratch that itch in different ways. Um, let's turn the corner here and talk a little bit. I want to go deeper into training, because training is it's a big topic. There's skills training, there's management training, there's leadership development, there's, for younger workers, it's just training in how to be a professional, how to, like you were mentioning, like how to ask for a raise. I'll put all of that stuff under the umbrella of training. So the future of work in the next 5 years, how do you see that evolves?
right. So this is a big question that we are grappling with. We have primarily a remote workforce. We have a mix of ages, skill levels. Because we have not really solved this gap in training, we tend to hire specifically for the role that we're looking for at the time, people who already know how to do the thing
Right.
that we want to get done. Yes. So I think for a lot of small companies, you know, the universe of, okay, we're going to take on this intern and we're going to work with them this summer in the hopes that they come back in a couple years and work for us full time. The company might not need that anymore to get the jobs done that the company needs to get done. they might be able to say, okay, we're going to hire an Upworker to do that, or we're going to hire an agency to do that. And I think, I think there sits in that an unanswered question of like, where do talented but generalist young employees go for training? And then, but there are ways to kind of thread the needle. For example, a lot of our people do online courses or even local courses, but local to where they are. So they are in a room with other people, they're being trained. It's sponsored by the company, even though we're not, I'm not sitting in a room saying, this is how you do X, Y, or Z. They're getting that. So there's kind of that proxy training. But I do think some companies are doubling down. I mean, especially companies that have more of a hybrid knowledge work, physical environment component, where you need people who actually understand, even if the machines are building the widgets, you need people in the company to understand what the machines are. So you need them to come to the shop and see what's happening so that they can help, the sales team in developing quotes, or that they can help with vendor management, et cetera. So for certain companies, that training might, you might be able to accelerate pieces of it through more automated, like, you need to learn how to use this machine, use ChatGPT. ChatGPT has the instruction book and our custom knowledge base. Ask it any questions, right? So it could be this, combined kind of AI element in the training, but still you're in the physical environment learning how to do this thing. So again, it's a case by case basis. I think the tricky thing for owners at this moment is that there's so many ways to kind of crack the same code. You can, there's so many options. Whereas it used to be the default was just come to this physical environment and we're going to figure it out together. Now it's like, well, I kind of want to go to my kid's golf tournament on Thursday afternoon, right? And it would be great if Jack could just get on the computer and figure this thing out, right? So like business owners are doing this personal trade-off themselves of how much do I want to be in the office? I have a great opportunity right now to have, work-life balance, and I'm going to take advantage of it. And so I think it's like the owner really needs to set the tone for their company and then find the people who mesh within.
What happens if the owner doesn't set the tone?
Well, that's where things get very hairy. And look, I'm speaking, we're speaking as if like every company has one owner.
Right.
Most companies have a partner or multiple partners or
senior leadership teams and managers and
senior leadership teams, right? Or, an owner, two owners who are running the company and a third owner who's not running the company, but has opinions about how the company should be run because they're an owner. So it's, it's a simplification of sorts, but the ownership and leadership team, I mean, that is what being a leader is, right? Is setting the tone, you're listening to your stakeholders, ultimately setting the tone, and then being willing to own that decision, which ton of empathy for that. Not easy to do.
Yeah. Now there's plenty of industries that they hadn't wrestled with remote. They just kept on keeping on. You're in shipping and logistics, right? You're in something that's physical. You just can't get out of it. Restaurants, things of that nature. How do you see those jobs evolving with AI? Because I was on a conference yesterday and the guy said, well, there's kind of two choices. One is you do nothing. Fair. You just show up to your work because you work in shipping and logistics and it's probably not going to change for you. Or two, you get very, very involved. And he said, the truth of the matter is you need to get very, very involved, regardless of what you're in. You really don't have two options. You kind of just have one. What's your take on that?
My take is that, yes, you should automate, you should use AI in every way possible for the back-end operations and those combined, the physical environment work. There's always back office stuff that's happening over the computer, whether it's your finance, whether it's, your ordering system, your inventory management. You're behind, you're going to get eaten if you do not adapt in those areas. And there's a lot of ways to do that now. It will only get better and faster and smarter. So just being in the headspace of it. Now, that being said, I took my kids to In-N-Out a few weeks ago. That is still a very old school physical environment experience. There's, they don't have the tablets where you plug in what you want. You're not ordering. They might have an app. I don't know. I went into the physical, and in some ways it was just like, this is such a relief to not have to get on the app, like not have to get on the tablet and figure out where, just be able to have a conversation with someone about what you want. And and be able to pick it up at the counter, right?
Right.
And so I do think that I think everybody's excited about the tech and excited about AI, but at the end of the day, like, the AI is meant to work for us. We're not meant to work for the AI. And I think that you're going to increasingly see a pushback among consumers for, I want to go to the counter and talk to somebody and put my order in,
Right.
right?
Slow and old school might become a unique selling proposition in the future,
Yes.
if it's
Yes.
not already.
Yes. And the same for even complex sales processes, right? Like, sure, we could, in our business, develop an app, an agent that would go through an iterative set of questions with a person, on a chat about their business, and what do you identify as your problem? And we could even ask the chatbot to program it. But at the end of the day, it just is not the same as sitting in a room and being like, where are you in life? Where is this business in your life? And what do you want to do?
Right.
And being able to ask that question human to human.
Yeah. Okay, let's play a little game. So if you were to give some advice by way of asking questions, non-prescriptive, to three different tiers of workers, and we're looking 5 years out as the theme of our conversation here, the evolution of work. What would you say to the late stage employee, employer, business owner, someone who's kind of later in their career, maybe they have 5 years left in the business?
Yeah. 5 years left. So to them, I would say, the value more than anyone of the old school way of doing business. And that still exists, even with all the hype around tech and AI. Like, what it means to shake someone's hand and look at them and know that at that moment the deal's done, regardless of the paperwork. And that exists, and it's real, and it's valuable. But at the same time, I would say, are you leveraging your younger, more tech forward employees or contacts to make some of the things that are clunky in your business work for you and work for the business, and setting it up for the next stage? It can be hard for owners at that stage when they've always done something this way and they've built a lifetime and a legacy and their wealth by doing things this way, to understand that business is an act of continual creation, right? And this is something that we talk a lot about with our clients is, even especially with second generation, it's like, dad started this thing out of the trunk of his car to provide for this family, and nowhere did it come down in the 10 commandments that the family always has to be doing business this way. Like, this was an act of creation to provide something. So now you have the opportunity to participate in that. And so for the older people, it's sort of like, what you have is still, what the skills you built are still relevant and still in many ways the most important skills of business, but leverage people to create your business into the future.
I love it.
For the mid-level people, I mean, they're really the bridge.
Mhm.
They've seen, their parents or their first bosses were in this older, and they have kids or siblings and the younger. And so they're kind of like, all right, I get both sides of this, but I'm pulled in between. But that's your role, is to be the bridge between, older and younger. And for the younger people, I mean, it's tough. Like, I remember in my early 20s, the ideas I had, or things should be different, or how, if we just did it this way, and the world needs that, and businesses certainly need that. But it's the old, respect your elders and understand that they've lived cycles of life that you can learn from. Like you can actually learn from them if you're open to it.
So the recap on that, and those are words of wisdom. The sage advice, if you're younger getting into the game, is learn all you can from those who are before you. Take the good, because there's a lot of good there. The mid-careerist, it's to serve as a bridge, because I do believe, and I agree that they're the translator. They're the translator between the
Yeah.
two in a way that no one else really is. And then for the more seasoned executive, it's all those years of experience. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because there's new hot things out there. Like you still have real serious skills and knowledge and wisdom that you can impart to the younger people. And if you don't do that, then we're missing a major opportunity.
Right.
Okay, I got two more for you. Mental health as a topic over the next 5 years. It's been a big topic, social media. I just got finished with a 30-day social media fast. It was awesome. Highly recommend it to anyone out there. What do you see as the evolution of mental health in the workforce in the next 5 years, whether it's because of all this AI adoption or the more social media, more integration of tech tools, less human connection, more remote work versus less of I'm showing up to the office every day. Like, what's your prediction on that?
Well, I'm not a doctor or or a mental health expert by any stretch. I'll say for me, a huge component of my mental happiness is achieving things in the workplace, that it's a huge confidence boost to be able to create things that are of value to businesses, to business owners, to have that sense of achievement. And to the extent that, in a lot of ways, work can kind of be an escape from all of that noise, a place where, really like if you put the effort and the work in, something valuable comes out on the other side. And you have the opportunity to have autonomy and impact
Yeah.
in, whatever small arena that we might be in. But nevertheless, like that, again, not being a psychologist, but I feel like that has to have some kind of circular positive impact on confidence, self-worth, just being able to point to if whatever you feel like the darkness is in social media, or the world's crashing down, like we're still doing things here.
Yeah, we're still doing things, still making things happen.
Still making things happen.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I do think that the in-person is a huge antidote to that kind of mental health or just malaise or disconnection, or I order my coffee on an app and then I go to my computer and I don't actually have a conversation with anybody all day.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of got to know who you are as a person. I mean, sometimes I feel like, oh, I don't want to go into this meeting. It's going to be like getting in the car, getting dressed, like blah, 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 blah. But then the payoff of that is so much more than what the cost is. And so just kind of knowing that even if you're hemming and hawing and part of you is like, this isn't worth my time or effort, like it really is. And actually we're human beings. We need to be with other human beings, whether we always like it or not.
So let's close this out on what your three predictions are of what the working environment in general will look and feel like in 5 years from today.
I think a lot of knowledge work jobs, we're going through the equivalent of the Industrial Revolution for knowledge work. And so I don't expect my job, if it exists, to be anything like what it is today. I expect that the computers will be better than me in most, if not all, the workflows that I currently do. So for the knowledge work, I don't think that anybody really knows. And that combined with, the physicality ability of robots, I think there's a lot of opportunity, but certain elements of business will remain. What those elements are, what they're not, I have no idea. In many ways, my job is the same as it was 2 years ago, but the pace at which we're able to, it used to be like an entire 6 to 8 week process to be like, what should this company do? And that process now we can get ramped up like in a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Now, rolling out, getting the humans and the process aligned around that is an entirely different story. But from my perspective, it's already accelerated so much the what, not so much the how, because there's still people involved and because the tech isn't magic. But so yeah, I can't imagine what it would be like, but I think it'll be really different.
Yeah, I kind of see it as like the future will need guides, people that have EQ, that they care, because it's going to be scary for a lot of people. There's
Yeah.
millions of businesses out there, and there's 330 plus million Americans, and that's just America, and there's 8 billion people on the planet. So it's like humans need humans. You don't have to only work local, right? You could think globally about it. I think our job at Growthink has always been to serve as that EQ guide first and foremost, coming in with empathy and compassion and really understanding like, yeah, this is scary. We both may not have all the answers, but we'll be your partner in battle. We'll do our part to ensure that you're doing your part. And maybe at some point the robots can do that, but I don't know if that'll ever happen, or at least not in the way that it would take us completely off the table, as long as we continue to care. And
Yes.
I think that guiding part is why someone should call Anna Vitale today and say, hey, I'm scared, I'm nervous. This thing is happening and I don't know how to wrap my hands around it.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
that's definitely where I see our jobs currently. Over the next 5 years, there's going to be a massive change in knowledge work outside, any business that has a knowledge work component, which all of them do. And our job is to be just that farther ahead of sort of the adoption curve so that we see the horizon line and we can guide people through it, like you said, 100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's always a pleasure to connect with you. I'll put
Thank
your
you.
contact information down below. If you're out there and you're wrestling with how do you wrap your hands around the future, what the next 5 years looks like, you want to find your way through it and to scale through it, so you can see a brighter future, maybe sell your business, who knows? Pick up the phone, call Growthink, send on an email, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.
Good stuff. Thanks, Tim.